Earlier today, you saw C. Owens go on the Breakfast Club. She's going to probably do decent numbers there. Not going to do Cat Williams numbers, but she's going to do decent numbers. However, what we're going to talk about today is the profit incentive to lie to you. Why is there such a financial incentive for people in media to present things to you that are 100% incorrect? Why do they do it? Why will they continue to do it? And what is going to be some of the detriment of you buying into what they're saying? And what I really want to encourage you to do with this particular video is start to observe what type of media you're ingesting and the reasons why you're ingesting it. And then I also want to encourage you later on in the show to come up and give your opinion, but I'm especially looking for people that disagree with me, because it's very interesting is that you'll find a lot of people in the comments that will talk about how much they are in line with somebody's views, but you can never get them to actually speak about that in their own words in any type of format setting. And it's very interesting that we have grown people who are still waiting for somebody else to speak for them, and they haven't really figured out how to speak for themselves. And I'm not talking about political advocates. I'm just talking about regular people. But really quickly, let's get into what I'm talking about, because I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by this profit incentive to lie to you. So let's go ahead and get into that real quick.
But they keep it so that the information level is so low for Americans that it's like, oh, COVID's so bad. Like, we're going to give you a check that's like, $300. This basically describes welfarism, right? Like, despite the fact that there's been trillions of dollars since the establishment of welfare, Black Americans are poorer today than we were before it. People don't know this, but during the time of Jim Crow, before welfare was established in the 1950s, Black Americans were actually outpacing white Americans in this country in terms of economic growth. And the reason for that was because our families were together. Like, we had good values. But they keep it so that
and to be real with you, I didn't listen to the whole interview because I can't take an hour plus of somebody just lying to me. Like, my time is too valuable. I have too many things I have to do that day. And my self-esteem is at a level to where I can't just sit there and have somebody lie to me for an hour and a half. And I think that's an appropriate relationship for me to be in. My self-esteem is at a level where that's unacceptable for me. So I can only get through maybe like the first 16 minutes of this particular situation. And so this cut is from the first 16 minutes. And pretty much after she said this, I had to cut it off because there's too much I can be doing today to be productive than to spend my time listening to somebody consistently lie to me about things that they really don't know what the hell they're talking about. And they're just being sent here to lie to me. But I'm going to play it back to make sure you heard it properly the second time.
But they keep it so that the information level is so low for Americans that it's like, oh, COVID's so bad. Like, we're going to give you a check that's like, $300. This basically describes welfarism, right? Like, despite the fact that there's been trillions of dollars since the establishment of welfare, Black Americans are poorer today than we were before it. People don't know this, but during the time of Jim Crow, before welfare was established in the 1950s, Black Americans were actually outpacing white Americans in this country in terms of economic growth. And the reason for that was because our families were together. Like, we had good values.
Okay, so she stated that before welfare, during Jim Crow, Black people were accelerating their wealth at a higher rate than white Americans. She didn't present any documentation. She didn't present any facts to back that up. She just said this. And then she attached this. She tried to create the causation of this particular acceleration of wealth during Jim Crow to be because Black people had better or good morals at this particular time. Okay, so this is kind of like this conservative or this Black conservative mantra that they keep saying, but they never produce any documentation, right, as to what they mean. Because if it's economic data, it can be verified. That's the thing about economic data. Economic data can be verified. So what they try to do is they try to mix social criticism, social theory, and kind of like behavioral politics with actual economic data. And the thing about economic data is why when you go to schools of economics, they teach you so much about statistical methods. They teach you so much about quantitative methods. Is because when you're composing your theory, you're supposed to do it with data. And then that data has to be reviewed by other people as being valid in the way in which you did your study was valid. It's not just supposed to be because you say it. So what I want you to understand, and this is something that's real, and this is what I had to realize years ago, and I told people on my channel before, The reason why I don't refute a lot of this stuff is because really Candace Owens and her little group, that little group she has in conservative media that are primarily like Gen Xers and little younger, but it's primarily like a Gen X group. And I'm not a big person to classify people by age groups, but that's kind of what it is. There was this big trend of this very, very young conservative media people right before the pandemic. They kind of blew up and exploded, right? And they got really big during the pandemic because of a lot of the civil unrest. And I told people before, they're the best people on our team. Why? Because they're going to make sure the audience stays stupid. Because in my opinion, you got to be dumb to listen to this person. You have to be dumb to find any value in what they're saying. And then you have to be dumb to remain listening to this person. So there's no way in which you leave listening to these people for an extended period of time. I don't see any way in which you leave smarter. Because if you're not getting any good information in, it's going to be very difficult for you to put good information out, right? So I had to realize this is the best person on my team. Her little group, they're my star players because everybody that listens to them is going to be non-competitive in the future, right? Because while we're talking about stuff like artificial intelligence, we're trying to figure out how to make money outside of the mainstream economy. We're trying to figure out how to leverage our skills to make more money and improve ourselves. They are listening to falsehoods around Jim Crow, and they're using this to confirm how they feel about the world. And then they're going to end up in the exact same place they were in before, right? So they're going to be non-competitive in a much more competitive world. So she's really a blessing to what I'm trying to do because she's going to make sure a large amount of the population not going to be competitive. And when they look up, they're going to realize they're out of position. And she's only doing this for the money. She's not doing this because she really wants to benefit people long term. Okay. But what I had to learn is that what she is she's an agent of disinformation. And this is really part of warfare. And what I mean by disinformation is this, right? What she's doing is she's purposely creating false information. So it's deliberately and covertly spread. One example would be the spreading of rumors in order to influence public opinion or obscure the truth. When you have all these people that come on the internet and they have position in media and they constantly are telling you things that are incorrect. We're moving past misinformation because misinformation means I don't know I'm saying this incorrectly. Disinformation is that I'm doing this deliberately. My goal is to come on media and to say things that are wrong. We saw that when Fox News got sued by Dominion. And Dominion did a discovery on Fox News. And what did we find out? That the people that worked in Fox News in their own internal emails, they knew that the information that they were given was incorrect. They were clowning the people that were coming on because they were saying that this information is incorrect. Tucker Carlson was talking down on Trump in emails. But it's a performance. These are entertainers in the entertainment space. So their job is to perform. But then when they're off stage, they go back into their real personality and they talk about how, this is a joke. These people are delusional. I don't like this particular person. But when it's time to say action, they fall right into character because it's entertainment. And so what we have is that we have this large amount of the population, because let me hip you to something. There is no law that states that media has to give you correct information. Doesn't exist. Now, they can't defame somebody, but there's no law that states that media has to give correct information. So you can be listening to somebody and everything that they say can be incorrect. And there's no law to say that they can't do that. Right? And we have this world now to where everybody's a thought leader with no evidence and information around their thoughts. It's just what they say. And if you can build an audience around what you say, you can make a lot of money, but you're just talking because there's nothing outside of you but just your words make sense. And so this is where people get into the commentary and you're taking your opinion and don't understand that there's such thing in this world called evidence. So then you create an argument based on the evidence. You don't create an argument just because that's how you feel. But we've kind of blurred these lines in media now. In my opinion, this woman is an agent of disinformation. This is how she's made her money. This is how she's become successful in this world. And the little crew that she runs with, they all do the same thing. You can't verify anything that they've said with evidence. And they never present any evidence. They just talk. They just run their mouth. So they're like a bunch of women inside a beauty parlor. And I'm not saying this to be chauvinist, to be stereotypical. I'm just saying this as an example They're like a bunch of women in the beauty parlor that just talk. And whatever a person says doesn't matter, because once we leave the beauty parlor, it doesn't matter anymore. This is how they made their money, right? And so one of their goals is to get you to use your time and resources to correct their disinformation. So I used to believe, well, okay, they put this disinformation out. Then now what we got to do is go correct it. Here's the problem. You spend all your time correcting their wrongs. So what does it do? It takes time and resources away from you where you could be using those time and resources to be productive. So what I had to accept is that if you're stupid enough to listen to this, then you're going to take everything that comes with it. So as they continue to move this society in a particular direction, none of these things are going to help you because they're not true. You can't make a lie into the truth. It's impossible. So there's a whole segment of the population that are going to be behind the eight ball because they spent their life listening to this stuff. So she's helping create a permanent underclass, and she's financially benefiting from it while telling you that she's some type of alternative media. It doesn't make sense. You're doing what the system wants you to do to people while trying to sell to me that you're the alternative to what the system is creating now. But everybody's doing the same thing, so I don't see an alternative. But their goal is to make you spend time. So I had to realize, let me fall back from that. Let me just get the people around me and get them correct. And if everybody else falls by the wayside, that's their issue. Because they're listening to somebody that's making them stupid, and they're dumb enough to sit there and listen to it. Okay, let's go to the next point. Out of that little crew of people that they got, right? They keep talking about Thomas Sowell. She talked about that early on in the first 16 minutes that I could bear myself to listen to. I've yet to find somebody from that little clique over there that claims they learned from Thomas Sowell that can actually talk econ. I've yet to find it, right? I've had an open invitation on my channel for 2 years about anybody that wants to talk about Black people, their economic condition, and to use Thomas Sowell's right curriculum or theories or whatever you want to say to support your ideas around it. Nobody can show up. But they keep talking about this guy like he's some type of legend in economics. But nobody can speak. Nobody can have an economic conversation using what they've learned from this guy. This is the weirdest thing in the world to me. So I saw another clip of her on another person's channel where they were talking about the fact that she married to an Anglo, right? And she didn't really, because they asked her, like, why do you talk about Black families so much and you married to an Anglo and you pretty much only associate with other Anglo people, right? And outside of the little people that you deal with in media, you don't really deal with Black people like that. So why is your media personality where you're so consumed with what's going on with Black people, but every day you go home to an Anglo family? And what she tried to do was mix in Thomas Sowell as to why she chose to marry an Anglo. But Thomas Sowell is an economist. So I didn't know Thomas Sowell was a relationship counselor. He's an economist. And so, again, I've yet to find anybody from these spaces that claim that Thomas Sowell is this legend in economics. And the first time I've ever heard it, I'm somebody that went to school for econ. Didn't hear any of my professors talking about Thomas Sowell as this legend in economics. You gotta study him. You know, I don't know any material that's been published by him in the economics field. In his particular field of economics, I've never heard of this guy being one of the stalwarts in that particular field. These were the first people I ever heard talking about this guy being some type of economic legend, but nobody can speak econ. They cannot have an economic conversation. So it's the weirdest thing in the world. I mean, it's like somebody telling me, I learned how to play basketball from watching Michael Jordan, but you can't play basketball, right? You just can't play. But you keep telling me that you learn how to play by being a student of Jordan, but then when we turn around and get on the court, you can't play ball at all. So my attitude, you didn't learn nothing, because either you can't do it or you're making your teacher look bad, right? So that's what I want you to kind of understand. That's a little side note I wanted to throw in there, okay? So next we want to ask ourselves, why would C. Owens go to the Breakfast Club? Because most people see the Breakfast Club as a kind of like lowbrow, lower level entertainment platform. Now, I've got information that her numbers are down. She's not doing the kind of numbers she wants to do or people anticipated her doing. So what she's trying to do is broaden her appeal, right? Because her numbers are down. So this is why you see her going on Fresh and Fit. You see her going on Joe Budden. You see her going on the Breakfast Club because in her lane, her numbers are down, right? Because one thing we know is that in entertainment, everybody has a run. And often when your run is over, your career is over. It's rare to be a Beyonce in entertainment where you have a 35, 40-year track run. That's really rare. It's almost impossible. Most people in entertainment get a run, and when the run's over, they're over. Most of y'all can't find Ann Coulter right now. Ann Coulter at one time was in her spot. And now Ann Coulter's a nobody anymore in those spaces. She had her run. When her run was over, she was over. And what I feel like she's trying to do is trying to broaden her appeal, get herself out to a larger audience, because the audience that she used to kind of make content for, she's not doing those same type of numbers anymore. You're seeing Anglo girls like Pearly, they starting to get a lot of momentum behind them because they're younger and they have a message that actually speaks to that audience, right? And so I think she's trying to figure out, how can I get in front of fresh eyeballs and maybe get some more momentum and traction behind my media career. That's why I think she's on the Breakfast Club. Because I guarantee you 4 years ago, when she was really at that high level, she would have never went on the Breakfast Club. Again, this is my opinion, but this is from my understanding of media and my experience in media. Mainstream media is interested in supporting mainstream media. So people will look at the Breakfast Club and ask themselves, how come they let these people go on Breakfast Club? And, you know, they will let these rap artists and these recording artists just spew all this foolishness on the Breakfast Club. But this is the reason. So let's say I got an interview platform and I interview people. You see this in the financial space too. If I bring you on and I skewer you, nobody comes on the platform again. Because why would they come on the platform to get skewered? It's not a counterpoint show. People really coming on to kind of raise their profile. So if people say, hey, Dave's going to bring you on the show, and they know I'm going to try to dissect you and make you look crazy, they're not going to come on. So that means I can't get people on the show. So the Breakfast Club lets people get on their show, and they kind of let them do what they want to do. Now, you see some exceptions to the rule with Vivek, but for the most part, they let you get on and do whatever you want. Because why? The Breakfast Club is an interview show. If nobody comes on the show, they got nothing to do. So they have to let people come on the show and get comfortable, else nobody else comes on the show. Also, with Charlemagne having relationships to our heart, and a lot of y'all don't know that because you really not tapped into my channel because we really do research on people. He is somebody in the our heart space that's kind of create a black category in the podcast space. He's really trying to get big in that particular lane because what he's doing with the radio is only so big you can get unless you have your own show. He's in that lane. He has his own category of black podcasts under his particular it's not called distribution, but under his particular development in his lane in the iHeart space. Who knows? In 5 years, he may cut a deal with Candace. So he's not going to try to destroy Candace because he does podcasts. She's a podcaster. They may do business down the line because mainstream media is interested in supporting mainstream media, right? And she is mainstream media. She's not alternative media. She's mainstream. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? So that's what I want people to realize is that mainstream media is interested in supporting mainstream media. So when I talk about Erica let me on her channel, the reason why it was a big deal to me is because I was way under her and she was way bigger than me. One thing you see on this YouTube space is often people want a contemporary on their platform. So if I got a channel, I got 100,000 subs, I want to have people on my platform that are contemporaries to me. I don't want to have someone on my platform that got 2,000 subs because I want them to bring their audience to my platform. C. Owens does have a big audience. So she can bring a big audience to the Breakfast Club. She can help out their platform and they can help her out. You see what I'm saying? No Jumper made a name interviewing artists that Breakfast Club would never interview because they were very small. Then they built themselves up doing that to become a big platform. But I remember when No Jumper started, he was interviewing people the way if you weren't really in the SoundCloud rap, you wouldn't even know who he was talking to. And he built his name up by doing that. Now he can go get the big artist. See? Because why would a big artist go on No Jumper and he's an unnamed or a no-name platform? This is how it works. Because now he's mainstream. He wasn't mainstream 4 years ago. So the reason why I big up Erica is because she allowed me on her channel. I had 500 subs. That's rare. Because she's sitting at 60,000 subs. She got somebody on her channel. She had me on her channel multiple times. I had like 500 subs. Most people in the media space will only let you on if they feel like you're their contemporary. If they think they're so much above you, they're not going to deal with you because their attitude is you don't help my platform out at all. Another thing I want you to understand. There's an interview years ago. The little weird guy, I think his name is Matt something. Little guy's real weird. And his whole platform is based around like having issues with the trans people, right? So he was on Joe Rogan and he said that millions of young people, talking about like kids, have gotten these puberty blockers in the United States, right? And he said this on the show because him and Joe Rogan was talking about this. And Joe Rogan was like, millions? He was like, yeah, millions. So Joe Rogan, while the show was going on, had his people fact check that. In reality, it was only like 4,000 people over 4 years have had these puberty blockers. 4,000 people over like 4 years. And so Joe Rogan was like, well, it's not really true. It's only like 4,000. These people just make this stuff up as they go along because that's what their audience wants to hear. It's like wrestling. Whatever's going to make the performance work, we do. Of course, it's not real. It's just a performance. And when they're able to go on a media platform and nobody facts check them in real time, because they're worried that, well, if I fact check everybody that comes on my show, nobody comes on my show, because what they're there to do is get their performance off. So Joe Rogan doesn't have a history really fact checking people, but he did it in this situation. But Joe Rogan knows if I fact check everybody that comes on my show, nobody comes on my show. And he's mainstream media. So his job is to do what? Support mainstream media. So he lets people come on their show and just say whatever they want. That's the game they're playing. There is no alternative media once a person gets past a certain level. What's the alternative about it? They're now mainstream. So that's what I want you to understand. People going to say, well, they didn't give no pushback. Yeah, they're not there to give pushback. They're there for her to bring her audience to them and for her to get access to their audience and to get a different look than what she's been doing the past few years, because I got good information that she's losing numbers. She's not the same person she was in media 4 or 5 years ago, right? So she has to try to figure out something. Now, this is what I want you to understand. The topics that she talks about, I know somebody that can talk about those topics from an expert point of view. This woman worked in the financial space. People don't know that the city that I'm talking about is a financial hub. It's one of the biggest financial cities in the whole world. She has a long track record in this history. She understands the economic and the political piece. You know why they won't let her on the show? Because her audience isn't big enough. So they're not letting people on because they actually are experts in their field and they know what they're talking about. It's about, can you bring an audience? If you can bring an audience, you can be a complete idiot as long as you can put an audience on the platform. So the woman I'm talking about is a woman named P. Ray Ease, right? She's out of Chicago. She has a radio show called the Black Excellence Hour on Intellectual Radio, and they have a relationship with iHeart. But she doesn't do C. Owens numbers. But when she talks about politics, and she comes from the conservative side, when she talks about politics, she talks about the migrant issue, she talks about economics, she can speak based on what she actually knows because she comes out of finance, because she comes out of the political space, because she's extremely educated and she can speak to these particular areas. But her downside is what? She don't bring the audience. So the Breakfast Club doesn't want her because she's not big enough. So they're not looking for people that actually know what they're talking about. They're looking for somebody that can keep the entertainment platform going. That's the only thing that's important to them, because at the end of the day, they got to do numbers. Another person they should have on, but they won't, is Yvette Carnell. Now, I'm not a supporter of Yvette Carnell. She does what she does. I do what I do. But I'm not against her. But one thing about Yvette can talk about Black issues and provide the documentation, provide the evidence, right? and speak to it from an understanding of having an understanding of the actual information that she's presenting, and she won't just be running her mouth. But she's not going to bring the audience. And they're going to have to deal with somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. See, so when it's just an entertainment platform, the number one goal is to keep everybody entertained. The goal is not to make sure people get correct information. The goal is not to make sure people actually get informed and leave with something that they can go do to improve their situation. At the end of the day, the goal is just to entertain people. So I'm not looking to bring on people that actually know what they're talking about. I'm looking on to bring on more entertainers, because at the end of the day, the Breakfast Club is an entertainment platform. It's not a political platform. It's not a social justice platform. It's not an economic justice platform. It is an entertainment platform. They're going to always lean towards what's the most entertaining, right? So this is a person that can actually come with the correct information around particular topics, but they won't let her on because why? They're not there for that. They're there just to entertain, okay? And if you study, you see that DJ Envy's still there, even though all these YouTube entertainers were talking about real estate RICO and all that. And I say, well, where's his name at in the paperwork? But that's because I read. And I say, I can't find his name in none of this paperwork that I'm reading. And you see he's still on Breakfast Club. He ain't went to jail yet. He ain't got indicted for nothing yet. Because the entertainment was just to tell you that DJ Envy was going to go to prison. The documentation wasn't saying that. So you got to really understand is that if you're stupid enough in 2024 to where everything is just entertainment, you're going to get what's coming to you. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. I'm saying that to be real to you, because I don't think nobody's telling you that. You're just going to get what's coming to you. If everything is just, I just need to be entertained, I'm at work, and I just want to listen to something while I work instead of trying to figure out how you're going to be more productive on the job, you're going to get what's coming to you. Okay? So let me show you what I'm talking about when we start talking about entertainers. But first, let me go into this real quick. We talk about welfare. She talked about welfare being something that was going to Black people. Welfare was created in 1935, right? Welfare was not created with the war on poverty in the 60s. Welfare was created in 1935. Okay? So we got to really understand, we'll start talking about these programs that they was giving money to people because of their economic situation. These programs started right after the Depression. Okay? Social Security Act, his New Deal sought to expand aid to elderly single mother pension programs, funded by federal tax dollars. Welfare use for families ballooned far beyond the Depression era. In 1936, you had 162 families receive support. In 1969, that number soared to $1.8 million. Okay? But the first welfare was started in 1935. So the question you want to ask yourself, in 1935, during Jim Crow, were Black people accelerating their wealth greater than white folks? Okay? Here's something else we want to talk about. The housing boom after World War II in the 40s excluded most Black Americans, most who remained in cities that received less and less investment from businesses and banks. The GI Bill guaranteed low interest mortgages and other loans, but they were not administered by the VA themselves. The VA could co-sign but not guarantee the loans. This gave white-run financial institutions free rein to refuse mortgages and loans of Black people. We talk about redlining, right? In 1947, only 2 of the more than 3,200 VA guaranteed home loans in 13 Mississippi cities went to Black borrowers. In New York and New Jersey suburbs, fewer than 167,000 mortgages issued by GI Bill supported home purchases by non-whites. This is in the 40s, but she's telling you during this time period, Black wealth was accelerating faster than white wealth. How? What economic data does she have to show to support that? Let's go to this one right here. Here is a report on the estimate of the consequences of denying Social Security to agriculture domestic workers, right? Here's another publication, Policy Diffusion and the Exclusion of Black Workers from Unemployment Insurance, okay? Business Insider, how a decade of U.S. welfare policies lifted up the white middle class and largely excluded Black Americans. Let's go down. When the New Deal Americans got Americans back to work, white Americans got their first pick at jobs. Black Americans did get jobs. They were given lower wages, according to the University of Houston Digital History Project. State and local governments administered almost all the federal New Deal programs. Many of these state and local government leaders, especially in the South, were virtually all white and racist, right? Says Gary Orfield, a professor at UCLA. Black people were excluded from key benefits created during this period. The Social Security Act of 1935, for instance, prohibited domestic and agricultural workers, an outsized number who were Black or Latino, from receiving benefits. The National Labor Relations Act of 1935, commonly known as the Wagner Act, boasted the strength of worker unions, but many major unions of this area excluded Black workers or discriminated against them. The question I want to ask again, in this particular time period, where does she have any evidence that Black people were doing better? That's the question you want to ask. Now let's go into this particular, I would say, comparison between C. Owens and Sexy Red. They're both entertainers, right? They're both here just to entertain you. There really is no difference between the two. So here's the similarities between both of them. They'll both do anything for attention in their niche. Okay? Have leaned into their character role. Whatever their role is as a character, they lean 100% into it. Because they're here to entertain you. So they learn that I got to lean into my role 100%. Next one. Don't care about pushback as long as they get attention. So it doesn't matter what I got to do. One will put out a song and say my booty hole is brown. The other one will say, slavery wasn't that bad because the whole world experienced slavery. The pushback is not relevant and it's not consequential as long as I get the attention that I desire. The next one. Can make money doing anything except what they were doing. And I should have said can't, my bad. That's a typo. What I mean is that what they're doing is the only way they're going to make this kind of money. So they're never going to stop doing it until the well just runs dry. Because how else do they make the kind of money that they're currently making? Right? And anybody that tells me that Candace Owens don't have to work because she married a rich white man, that's really unusual because she does a lot of working. She works like she got hella bills that are due and she got to pay them and she don't have no husband. So I'm not getting that she married into wealth and that means she don't have to work because she does a lot of working for somebody that don't have to work. Right? But she won't make that money outside of being a performative political entertainer. There's no way she's going to make that kind of money because what's her skill set? Same thing with Sexy Red. What is her skill set that's going to allow her to make the kind of money she's making except doing what she's doing? Next. Addicted to the fame. The reason why they don't want to let it go is because they need that fame. They need that attention. So even when the numbers start to go down, they just won't retire and say, you know what, that's it. I had my run. I got to try to figure out how to keep this thing going because I'm addicted to the fame. There is no difference between these two people. They're both entertainers. They just have different characters in this entertainment thing, right? Sexy Red has a character because if you really study Sexy Red, this version of her was not who she was 6 years ago. She created this character because she figured out what works in media, right? The woman on the left created this character because she realized what works in media, right? Being polarizing, being controversial, giving people something to talk about, because as long as they talking, you getting the attention, right? Because most people are bored. They ain't really got nothing going on in their life. So anything that they can talk about today, then you give them something to talk about tomorrow. Do you give them something to talk about tomorrow? So it doesn't matter what you say because nothing you say has any weight to it, the way it's going to stand the test of time anyway. So you just got to figure out how to give people something to talk about today. Then tomorrow you start the process all over again. How are you a role model of morality if you lie for opportunity and money? If your job is to lie for opportunity and money, how are you a model of morality? Right? That's the question you want to ask yourself. Now, if you don't know that she's lying because you don't read and you don't know, that's cool. But for somebody like myself that actually understands, like, how are you the model of how Black women should conduct themselves in public if you lie for opportunity and money? So what you're doing is just putting on a costume, because what's underneath everything is somebody that'll do anything for money. Well, where I'm from, we call that prostitution, right? So that's all we want to talk about really quickly. We're going to play her audio one more time. so you can understand what she talked about if you came in late. And then we're going to allow people, if they got anything they want to talk about, if they disagree, most importantly, they can come up here and do what they got to do.
But they keep it so that the information level is so low for Americans that it's like, oh, COVID's so bad. Like, we're going to give you a check that's like, $300. This basically describes welfarism, right? Like, despite the fact that there's been trillions of dollars since the establishment of welfare, Black Americans are poorer today than we were before it. People don't know this, but during the time of Jim Crow, before welfare was established in the 1950s, Black Americans were actually outpacing white Americans in this country in terms of economic growth. And the reason for that was because our families were together. We had good values.
So let me read these super chats real quick. So Mr. Watts, appreciate the super chat. She's a disinformation machine. Years ago, when she did that one panel with Killer Mike and everybody in the crowd was shutting her down, she would have never tried to go on this show. I feel you. Cedric Webb, appreciate the $5. Thomas Sowell has been heavily criticized by other economists for his rhetoric. Other economists have deconstructed his arguments multiple times. Yeah, I mean, it's, again, we have these people, I don't know what they really do in real life, but they're attached to this particular college. That I don't know anybody that even goes to that school. And they're calling themselves research fellows, but they never produce any research. So it's just this real weird thing that they get these fellowships that are supposed to be research-based, and no research comes out of the fellowship. It's just really weird to me, but it is what it is. Tori Helmsman, appreciate the $20 super sticker. Ori, appreciate the $4.99. Ray Gunn, appreciate the $2. And Mr. Terrence, appreciate the $4.99. Okay, so if you have not liked the video, I would appreciate if you go ahead and hit me with the like. I'm going to put the link up for anybody that want to come through. And we can do it from there. Okay, so the invite link is pinned. I'm going to read these comments, man. See if anybody want to come through. Okay, so here's 2IU. Let me get Mr. Terrence super chat out of here real quick. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I just wanted to ask a question. Well, first off, I like your commentary. I've been listening to you. I think I found you on Erica's show, actually, and I watch your videos from time to time. It's really interesting perspective. I did have a question about Thomas Sowell, though. I never really thought too much about him in particular. I did kind of wonder, he was like one of these people I just heard of out of the blue, much like Candace Owens. And I actually, I ordered his book off Amazon. I think it's called Basic Economics. That's the one I ordered. So are you saying that I should return the book because everything in the book may not be factual? Because I kind of just wanted just a book that would explain basic economics from like capitalism and taxes. I mean, I understand these things, but I wanted like a comprehensive book to understand it on a deeper level, more than like the average American.
No, I wouldn't say you should return the book. Thomas Sowell got a PhD in economics from one of the top finance economic schools in the whole world. That's a fact.
Okay.
So that is actually factual. Okay. My thing is that, one, he's not known to be a stalwart in the field of economics. So one thing you got to understand is that getting a PhD is one thing, right? Once you get your PhD, then becoming a leader in your space or your field because of your PhD is something totally different.
Oh, I see.
You know what I'm saying? So yes, getting a PhD is very difficult. It's a very rigorous, especially depending on what school you go to. Then after that, becoming a leader in your field because you have a PhD is something different. So the guy that taught Thomas Sowell, Milton Friedman, was considered a leader in his field, even though I don't like a lot of his theory, but he put a lot of work in to be considered a leader in his space. And that's the guy that taught Thomas Sowell, right? So Thomas Sowell does understand what he's been taught. My thing is to present him as a leader in the field of economics when he's been around forever. And it's not as if his work has been hidden from anybody. It's that his work has never really been seen as being that, how do I want to say it? I don't know, the word starts with an E, but it hasn't really been seen as just being this outstanding work in the field of economics. There's a lot of people that have PhDs in economics. He's not the only one.
So, you know, I follow his YouTube channel, and like I watch some of his little short videos about topics. And so are you saying that him and Candace are not because, you know, collectively they mostly talk about how Black America, how they're not like systemically, how there isn't like systemic racism, how there isn't like all this other stuff that is holding Black people back. And I mean, are you saying that that's wrong? Because I mean, to a degree, I agree with them. Candace Owens, I kind of get from her like, yeah, she is kind of a grifter. I don't really feel like she's genuine, honestly. But some things I agree with from what I've heard of her. I don't really follow her though. I don't really listen to her talk. I think she's kind of hypocritical in that aspect, because she talks about things with women, how women are working and be at home. But, you know, like you just said, she's working like, you know, she has a bunch of bills to pay. So I don't really follow her too much.
No, what I'm saying is that when you listen to Thomas Sowell speak, he very rarely speaks about economic theory and the economic theory that he was educated in. So there's different schools of economic thought. He comes out of a specific school of economic thought. He rarely speaks to that. See, so like I'm saying, he's able to fool a lot of people, not people that actually got an econ background. So he rarely speaks about anything dealing with economic theory. He hasn't created a new economic theory to explain anything going on in the world. He's more of a social theorist, which is cool. He can do that. He's 90 years old. He can do whatever the hell he wants to do with his life.
He's 90?
He's around 90. Yeah, he is 90.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, he's a much older gentleman. So, you know, he can do whatever he want to do. But to hold him up as his leading economist, to me, I don't see the work in econ that will support that theory or support that assertion. So when you're listening to him talk on YouTube, ask yourself, where is the economic explanation? So if you're talking about systemic racism, right, and there not being systemic racism, okay, where is the data that he's presenting to support this particular theory of there not being systemic racism? When has he done an economic study around it not being systemic? Because he has a PhD in econ. He's not me. So when did he go do a study, right, using some type of methodology to support his idea that, because he's not supposed to say that there's not systemic racism. He's supposed to ask himself, is there systemic racism? Then we go do a study using some type of methodology to determine, based on our study, can we find systemic racism? Then turn around and say, well, based on our study, we did not find systemic racism in this particular area based on the study that we did. Then give you population size, how we did the study out. He doesn't do any of that. He just gets on TV and in front of that white dude and just starts talking. That's not what he went to school for.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of people, myself included, have fallen down this rabbit hole of YouTube. You know, the algorithm, you know, you watch one video based off something and the algorithm recommends these other people to you. And I think that's how a lot of people really come to find out about folks like Candace Owens and Thomas Sowell. And these people just kind of, I don't know, YouTube is its own world. These people just kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, it's a lot to take in for sure. Well, besides, you know, Thomas Sowell's book on economics, do you have any other recommendations for just like economic books? You know, just something like the average American could understand, not somebody who's like educated from Harvard or something, just the average American.
Do you think you can absorb college level material?
I probably could. I
Okay.
probably could.
Okay, so I would encourage you to just go to Amazon, and they have books there that would be given to a college if they were taking like microeconomics. So if you was in a college, especially as a you in the college, you have something that you call your core courses that you got to take before you actually get into your major.
Mm-hmm.
You would take macro, micro, just fundamental courses to go into economics before you start going into specialization. They have those books, so you can kind of look, let's say whatever state you live in, you can go find what macro economics book is used at the community college for your state. And you can find that book and find it. Can you find it on Amazon? Which you should be able to now because it's 2024. I would just get that book used. And that would help you get a basic understanding of actual economic theory, right? From a fundamental standpoint. So when you have these conversations, somebody can tell you that Black people were doing better economically and they were accelerating their wealth during the Jim Crow era when they were being denied the ability to own homes and work outside of being like domestic laborers and farm workers.
I see. So do you agree? Because I've heard this argument brought up on the internet too. I'm not sure if it's brought up between Candace Owens and Thomas Sowell, like specifically, but I've heard this. I've heard that integration was the downfall of Black America. Do you agree with that?
Well, what kind of integration are you talking about? Are you talking about legal integration? Or are you talking about social integration? Because they're not the same thing.
I think the argument I heard was probably both. I think it was both, but I would say social more so.
No, I mean, it depends on the person. So it depends on the person and their perspective on life. So do I personally believe that social integration destroyed Black people? No. Right? I don't believe it, because if you don't want to be around somebody, why would somebody else try to make you be around that person? I'm talking about if you're a Black person and you don't want to associate with other Black people, why would we try to make you associate with Black folks?
Okay, so it might have been the other one, the economic part.
You mean legal segregation?
Yeah, legal.
No, because most people that argue against legal desegregation, they spent their whole life in institutions for white folks.
Mm-hmm.
So I would only entertain that kind of argument if I was talking to somebody from the nation, right? Because I know they live in a Black life, right? Mm-hmm. But if you went to a PWI, you went to integrated schools, you live an integrated life, and then you're telling me that segregation. My question, if it's so bad, how come you're not living that way then currently?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I don't entertain it. It's just, this is more like I say, this is just how can I get attention? Let me say something provocative, yada, yada, yada. So you got a PhD guy on this YouTube that tells Black people that integration is a downfall to Black people. And he got his education, his PhD, he got his undergrad, his graduate, and his PhD from PWIs. He taught at PWIs. His wife still teaches at a PWI, but he'll get on YouTube and tell Black people that integration is the downfall of Black folks. He's just entertaining people. Because if you really believe that, the first thing you would do is get your wife from working at a PWI because you got the money. But the reason why he won't do it because he don't really believe that. He's just saying whatever he has to say on the internet as an entertainer. Because we live in a world now where everybody's trying to be an entertainer because that's a quick way to get rich. So no, I don't believe that unless you living like that. Now, if you living like that, I believe you. But if you're not living like that, I don't believe you.
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, I listened to him sometimes. I didn't dive that deep into his background to know that though. That's interesting. I guess you could kind of say the same thing about, another YouTuber in this field, Voice Watkins. I mean, because he's always, but I don't know. His position on some things is kind of iffy too, because I don't know. Maybe you don't want to talk about him though, but he is like another one in this field. I'm not
really here to talk about him. What I'm just saying is that on the issue of segregation, being for or against it, what I look for as a person is that how they live their life on any level. Mm-hmm. So I'm not gonna debate somebody or even entertain for somebody that desegregation was bad for Black people if that's not how that person is living.
Mhm.
Because I'm not bored. Like, I'm not a bored person. So I'm not going to just, and I don't have a platform that what I just try to come up with a topic that I think is going to be provocative, but I don't really believe in the topic. So everybody got different reasons why they're here. Just like I said, this woman, C. Owens and Sexy Red, they're really the same person. They just have two different characters in media. But I don't think people really understand media enough to kind of understand what they're looking at. They're really the same. In fact, Sexy Red is way smarter than what she lets on. In fact, she may even be smarter than Candace Owens. There's nothing dumb about that woman. But she's playing a role because that's what's profitable for her at this current time.
Well, that's interesting. So how do you know all this? Like, how are you so aware of this? Because I agree with what you just said. You said some people, a lot of people are maybe not aware of what they're looking at. And I think I'm sometimes one of those people, like, YouTube recommends these people to you, and, you can look them up to see their credentials and like, okay, this person got a degree in this and they got books and they got these credentials. And you just, I'm not saying you soak up every word that they say, you still think about what they're saying, but you kind of go to these people as you kind of, start to believe their arguments because it makes sense. But someone like you who's saying maybe most people don't really understand what they're listening to or looking at. But you just said that Sexy Red and Candace Owens are like really the same people, just two different appearances. That's interesting because I never would have pegged them to be like the same type of people. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, how do you see past these facades?
I read more than most people. And I've been reading more than most people the majority of my life. So I've realized that I have an advantage that most people don't have, right? Because every year I've outread most people. Then I've applied more than most people. So a lot of the risks that I had to take in life to apply, I took them. So now finally I'm benefiting from all that risk taking. But I was very fortunate to be raised in a household with parents that made me read at a very young age. So I came into grade school already knowing how to read. I didn't have to learn how to read from school. Then I never stopped reading. So I was reading, and I'm not trying to be braggadocious, I'm just being real with you. I was reading at a college level, probably in 9th grade. Then I read higher level. So like today, earlier this afternoon, I was reading a report on why this particular stock is probably not a good stock because they are over leveraged in this particular real estate area. So I read information from people that is at a higher level. So I'm constantly challenging my brain all the time. So I can see through a lot of stuff because of the depth of the stuff that I read all the time, right? So it's really just years of reading, and it doesn't mean somebody can't catch up with me. They just got to start reading all the time. So anybody that's around me, one thing they'll get from me is I'm keep telling you need to read more. You don't read enough. And so people, if they read more and then read more critical information and then applied that critical information in the real world, they'd be able to see through all the nonsense. But because they're not doing that, they're having those challenges. So just really, I read more than the average person, just to really boil it down. So somebody can't come on YouTube and tell me something. I'm going to go try to read it because I don't believe them just because they say it. Because one thing you learn in mathematics is something is not true just because it's given. It's true because you could take it and go prove it to be true. It's not true because it's given. So when I was in college and they taught me that in calculus, that you have to prove problems. You also learn this in algebra. I would take a mathematical statement. Now I have to go prove why it's true. It's not true just because somebody gave it to me. So that's how I look at everything. So somebody would tell me something. Miss Cherie, who's an extremely intelligent person with a lot of information, I would take what she says, I'll go research it and find out whether or not it makes sense to me. It's not true just because she said it. It is no disrespect to her, is that's not how I've been trained.
Yeah, I agree with that. My mom always said, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. So I'm definitely somebody to not just 100%, believe everything just because they saying it and it sounds nice and they got a white coat on or a nice suit or whatever. I'm definitely not at that level. I usually try to when I hear somebody say things, I try to think about it from my own lived perspective. And if it's something that I've seen like a pattern of, or I've definitely seen in my life, then it's like, okay, yeah, well, I take that to be true because it makes a lot of sense in my own personal life that I've experienced. So what kind of, I mean, I'm sure you're going to say everything, of course, but you know, what type of literature do you usually read? Like historical literature or economics or social stuff,
So,
social
so
sciences?
I'm so in saying this, after I say this, I'm gonna go ahead and get to the next person.
Okay.
Currently, right now, I read a lot of finance, econ material. So let's say out of 100%, probably 50 to 60% is finance, right? Read about a lot of spirituality stuff, dealing with my faith. And then I read a lot of just basic, what do you call it, fiction books that are just something I want to enjoy. But probably 50 to 60% of what I read on a daily basis is either finance or econ. And it mix a little bit of politics in that, but heavily finance and econ.
Okay,
But
real quick.
but to be real with you, I would tell anybody that's starting out reading, figure out what you like and just read that, because that'll get you reading. So no matter what you like, as long as you're reading. I would never tell nobody, well, you got to read what I read. No, if you like a particular topic, just read that topic till you go crazy. Because after you do that, you burn out of that topic, you'll go into something else.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, real quick before you go, do you have any authors or favorite books that you like about finance and economics?
No, I don't have anybody I favor over anybody else.
Okay.
To me, it's just I just read certain publications, but I don't have any specific author that I'm a favorite of. No, I just read. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I just read because I'm trying to figure out how to make money. So if a person can give me information that's gonna make me money, I'm gonna read that. If it's not gonna make me no money, I'm not gonna pay no attention to it. Because I don't make money worrying about a lot of this other stuff. That's why I don't really pay no attention to it. And so the business model that we're currently seeing in media is how can I get a group of people around me and I make the money, they make no money just watching me. That's the business model.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so these people are gonna listen to these people for the next 10, 15 years, and they're gonna be broke, and that person gonna be rich.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to get the people around me to get their money together, because I don't want to be the only person with some money and everybody around me broke, because that don't really work for me. But everybody different. So but I appreciate you coming through. Appreciate the conversation. I got to get to the next person. Stay safe and be easy.
Okay, thanks for your time. Bye.
No problem. You can hear me?
Yes. Diamond Dave, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, good, good. You got one, brother. I'm a Thomas Sowell fanatic. No, I'm just kidding. I hope that made you smile. Anyway, I just wanted to call and say thank you so much for your presence and for the show. I've been following you for quite some time now. And one of the things that I like about you, especially when you talk about these types of topics, is you, for me, you tend to identify what's missing from the conversation, how everybody else is talking about their group when they talk about success, except us. And so even some of our elites like Glenn Lowry and what's the other brother on Glenn Lowry's show? What's the it's a lighter skinned man. I can't remember his name right now, but they go back and forth, and they tend to, I guess, take a more conservative. They tend to take a more conservative viewpoint, you know, as to why we're in our condition and what we need to do today. But very few people are pushing the angle that we need to be competitive as a group, and we need to like build some things for each other to be more competitive. And so I guess my question to you would be, what are some things that you think that based upon what we have in place, you know, we've got HBCUs, we got the Black Church, we've got quite a number of structures that are still in place for us. What are some of the things that you think we can use to begin to build a more competitive, more united, you know, a more united union or nation in America? for ourselves. And when I say nation, I'm talking about for Black people. However you see that.
Okay, so do me a favor. Ask the question again, because I want to make sure I understand
Okay.
what you're asking.
Yes. Well, the first thing I said was you're the one person that I've heard say, look, everybody else is looking at this thing as a group. Like they're attacking the game as a group. We're attacking it as individuals. And so Glenn Lowry and some of these other people, some of these other economists, even Thomas Sowell, no one's Thomas Sowell does speak about the group, but not necessarily in terms of it's more of a criticism. So what I'm saying is, like, based upon what we have in place, how do you see us being able, based upon what we have, right? If we were to use what we have, the Black Church, HBCUs, and other organizations, maybe the Greek culture, whatever, how do you think we should begin to move forward to build a more stronger union so that we can compete as Black people in the world? Sorry, my kids are about to go to bed, so I'm gonna mute you. Sorry.
No problem. I understand. So first thing I would do is, and this is just my own personal perspective, is I just would get with a group of people and I would work with that group of people to get my goals done. Right. So I would not try to create this big, large mass movement. I would get with a group of people and we have we can get on common terms and we have similar goals. And then we can use that to form some type of synergy to get done what we want to get done. Because a lot of things in this world don't have to be done with a lot of people. They can be done with a small group of people. I think trying to get everybody on a bandwagon to do something, it doesn't work unless that's what you need to get it done. So I don't spend a lot of time trying to recruit everybody. I'm trying to get specific people that I know want to move forward and they action takers and they actually want to get it done. And I'm going to work with those people and everybody else that can figure it out. Because what happened is if you're actually trying to put something together, you can get stagnated waiting for everybody else to see it the way you see it, right? You got to get with the people that want to do what you want to do and y'all move forward. So that's what I would encourage people to do. That's what I'm currently doing. That's what I would encourage people to do. I wouldn't wait for everybody to think that that's okay. That's what we need to do, because then you spend all your time fighting for stuff. I'm pro reparations. If you're not pro reparations, I'm not going to try to spend any time convincing you. I'm going to do what I need to do. Right. So that's what I try to get a lot of us to understand, is that we spend a lot of time trying to convince people that not going to ever be convinced anyway, instead of trying to spend the time doing the work that you need to do to get done what you need to get done.
Got you. That sounds like more like like maybe a Dune approach. I know you're probably familiar with the literature, but just in terms of a house as opposed to a nation, kind of like building a larger family of people who are like-minded, I guess, but happen to be, I'm assuming, Black, but you would build it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I believe in micro groups.
Okay.
I believe in stuff being decentralized.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I think it's a waste of, we got 40 million Black people inside the United States. Some of these people are so out on planet Pluto, you'll spend your whole life trying to get to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's a good use of the small amount of time you got on the planet.
Understood.
So I would work with the people that want to work with me and what I'm doing, and I would move forward. And everybody else, either they figure it out, they don't figure it out. That don't have nothing to do with you. You got to work with the people that you want to work with. You know, because there's so many, not only Black people inside the United States, but Black people in the whole world. I think this idea that we're all going to get everybody on the same page, that's not how the world works. It don't work that way. It don't work that way with other groups of people. They have their own group that's part of a larger group, but I think we spend too much time trying to make people see things the way we see it instead of doing the work with the people that actually see things the way we see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay. Well, thank you so much for giving me some time, brother. I appreciate the response.
All right, man. Be easy, man. Stay safe.
You too. Mm-hmm.
All right. Peace. Okay. So any people, last people before we get up on out of here, man, I got a few more minutes. So Ray Gunn says, she's hustling. I acknowledge it. Keep it moving. It's the same recycled talking points over and over again. Most definitely. I agree with you on that. It is a lot of recycled talking points. You know, that's what she get into though. She got her talking points down pat, bro. So when you try to get her to actually expand on something, but that whole community over there does the same thing. They've been taught this. So Robert Reed says Charlamagne the God is tied to Angela Rye, but he doesn't understand how she was wrong. What is Angela teaching him? Well, we would have to assume that Angela is teaching him anything. That would be an assumption on our part, that he's being taught anything. So Roscoe says, I never heard of Sowell outside of politics. I took a couple of econ courses in college, definitely. Yeah, I mean, nobody in the econ space really talks about Sowell. They talk about his mentor, but they don't talk about him. And that's just a fact. You know, he hasn't really put the work in his field outside of getting the PhD. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to hold him up as this figurehead in economics and he just has all the solutions for Black folks, yeah, I would disagree with that. You know, I would, because I don't see them. I don't see any results of his solutions. I will put it to you that way. So Miss Cherie says her run is over. She's trying to appeal to a different audience. I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. Or he says, I don't blame her for what she's doing. The market for BS is huge. I agree with you. It is. It's massive. So Robert says the Breakfast Club has been captured by Democrats for years. And all of a sudden they have on Candace something that's afoot. It's entertainment. If it gets people to watch, they're going to put it on. Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, they're an entertainment platform. I don't think they're a political platform by any stretch of the imagination. Right? And they're all in media. So they're beholden to what is good media. You know, I think they present that they're this opposing stuff. Man, that's not really how it works, in my opinion. So part of my presence says, I did enjoy this interview. I like Candace, but she doesn't influence my vote. Yeah, I don't know how you listen to an hour and a half of that. I don't know. And it's just like rapid fire. Like it just doesn't stop. I don't know how you do it. I don't know. But, you know, everybody like their different stuff. I like music you probably don't like. But I don't know how you listen to an hour and a half of that. I couldn't take more than 15, 20 minutes of it. So Miss Cherie says the White Lives Matter shirt is proof that Candace Owens is about getting attention at all costs. Definitely. That's the game she's playing. She got to keep her attention up. And she worked well into her pregnancy. Yeah, she was working 7 weeks after she had her baby. So she's a striver. She ain't gonna miss no money. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what work for her relationship. So Roscoe says Sowell's oversimplifies certain issues, but overall he's a decent academic economist. He could be. I haven't really read a lot of his economic work because he don't have a lot out there. He doesn't have a lot of papers. He hasn't really been published. He doesn't really have a lot of economic. To me, he does more work in social, like social commentary, being a social theorist. I don't see this large amount of economic work even available for me to absorb. I just don't see it. You know, his mentor has it, but he doesn't for some reason. And he's had long enough time to produce it. He just hasn't produced it. So part of my president says, how is Candace a feminist? She's a married woman with 3 children. She may not be a feminist, but she did work through pregnancy and start working 7 weeks after a pregnancy. She's on her 3rd child. You know, so you would think with the traditional values and the morals, she would kind of sit down a little bit and take care of her kids. She added. So, you know, what's the guy's name? Farmer. You know, he got him a go-getter, man. You know what I'm saying? Got him a go-getter, man. She a real go-getter. She ain't gonna miss no money. So he could do what he do, which I don't know what he does, but he ain't got to do much. His girl out there getting to it, man. She ain't gonna pass up no paper. She a go-getter. She wake up, man. She at it. So he married the right one. You know what I'm saying? But she ain't kicked. Her feet not kicked up on her 3rd child. Big up the Body Hood, man, for the $10 super chat. Big up to y'all. Y'all go check them out. So Ray Gunn says Sexy was a straight gangster rapper, St. Louis version of Gangsta B a few years ago. Definitely. She changed her style up, but that's what paid her. Because what she was doing before wasn't making her no money. You know, and she didn't even look the same, Ray Gunn. She looked totally different. And that's what you see. I tell people all the time, Rick Ross had to turn himself into a drug kingpin to make it as a rapper. But he could always rap. But y'all wanted to see the drug kingpin aesthetic. So when he did, that's when he blew up. But Rick Ross could always rap. So that's what y'all want to see. He gave y'all what y'all wanted to see. He blew up off that. And, you know, to be real with you, man, people in Miami don't know Rick Ross is no drug kingpin. But it is what it is. That's what y'all wanted. And I'm not talking about you, Ray Gunn. I'm just talking about the audience. That's what they wanted out of him. Mr. Jared, man, appreciate the $10. Ant Dog, man, you always switching your picture up. My political party is Buccaneer. My voting party is Buccaneer. Right? I don't do none of these other political football teams. I came in a Buccaneer, I'm gonna leave one. So my political party is Buccaneer, and I vote Buccaneer in every election. I'm voting the Buck ticket. So Roscoe says he has books. He does have books. Most of his books are not around economics. He has 5 or fewer academic papers. So he's 90 years old and he's got 5 published academic papers. Hell, he should have had 5 public papers coming out of PhD program based on who he was going to school with. But it is what it is. You know, like I say, he got a right to do whatever he want to do. He's 90. $4.99 super chat. So he says intellectual person, practitioner. He's very much an intellectual, not a practitioner. Yeah, I mean, he spent his whole life in academia. So there was never an opportunity for him to actually put anything to the test because he spent his life teaching. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need teachers. Right? So that's the issue. But there was no opportunity for him to go into practice because he was in academia. He didn't really work in the private sector. And it is what it is. But we do need teachers. Right? So it's not that he did a negative thing. It's just that it's just good academic theory. But that's what you see in academia. So Darkman just said Dave's a Buccaneer fan. All right, through and through. So if that's how you read what I said, I agree with you. I'm not going to correct you. So Ray Gun says totally different look. She's smart. Yeah, I'm saying she's Ray Gun. She's way smarter than what she letting on. She's not dumb. She playing dumb because that's what's paying her. Because she's realized the audience really not that smart. Right? So she's playing dumb, but no, she's not stupid. Yeah, I don't agree with some of the things she does in her life, but that's her life. She's gonna do what she's gonna do. She's a grown woman. But she's not an idiot. You know, she's not, because she figured out what she needed to do to get successful and to get the money out of these folks. And she's not a cold rapper like that. She's just really not. So Judith says, outside of business, what would economic theory be practiced? Building communities, building economic systems. You're seeing economic theory played out in front of you right now today. And so much of the American economy is business. So, you know, I'm not sure how we get away from it. You know, business is a large part of what goes on in America. So that's pretty much going to be it. Appreciate everybody for coming through. Hope you got some value from it. Everybody be safe, man. Talk to y'all later.